feel quite privileged to be here. I'll talk mainly about what's going on in Cyprus and the bases there. When it became independent from Britain in 1960, Britain retained two major bases, which is they cover 100 square miles, which is quite significant. There is in the south coast, Dikelia and Aphrodiri. Aphrodiri is the main military base because it's got an RAF airport there, and that's where there has been the flights in support of Israel in their war against Gaza. Just to give you an idea of the strategic importance, Cyprus is 250 miles from Gaza, 350 miles from the Suez Canal, and is even closer to Syria and Lebanon. In fact, it's closer than London is to Scotland, just to give you an idea. And of course, we know in terms of the British influence, they want to be there in the Middle East where most of the world's known oil reserves are situated. So it's very, very strategic. Now, the other thing to know about these bases is that from all the British overseas territories, the area in Cyprus is under military control. The administrator is the head of the British forces in Cyprus. It's appointed directly by the Ministry of Defense and has no formal links with the Foreign Office. And it's the only case in all British overseas territories. So it's quite significant. Now, I want to switch, not just to criticize the British, but also the local government, because the agreement is that where British military actions could impact Cyprus, e.g. regional conflicts, intelligence sharing agreements, and so on, the UK is expected to coordinate with the Cypriot authorities. However, the government of the Republic of Cyprus have never received such updates. Having said that, we have to emphasize that at the same time, the Republic of Cyprus asserts not to have requested any to be informed on these matters. Now, we have a contradiction here. So on the one hand, we can argue that the British basis is a post-colonial relic, and there is a point to saying that. Yet, these bases have since become an integral part of the Republic of Cyprus' strategic positioning to be a front-line state for the West. Now, in terms of the left in Cyprus, we have to support the Palestinian cause and demand the end of all collaboration of the Republic of Cyprus with Israel in the exploitation of the hydrocarbons in Eastern Mediterranean. So there is a number of agreements between Cyprus and Israel about the natural gas they expect to get from the sea. We must also unequivocally demand the dismantling of the British bases there. In 1974, there was a war in Cyprus where Turkey invaded and divided the island in two. The Greek Cypriot government at the time, having lost the war, they coined the phrase, and this was an important slogan for them, "We are the new Palestinians." In other words, they knew the Palestinians were the victims and they wanted to present themselves as such. So if they knew the Palestinians were the victims 50 years ago, how come today they are signing agreements with Israel, both commercial and military? Now, at the same time, they turn a blind eye when the British bases are used by Britain, the US, to supply Israel with weapons and intelligence, all done via the British bases there. So we have to emphasize, in other words, UK, the US, and Cyprus are not just complicit in the genocide, but they are active participants and profit from these crimes. The government of Cyprus should have done more to stop the bases being used in this way. I'm quoting here Vera Polikarpou, head of AKEL's International Relations Office. AKEL is the Communist Party in Cyprus. She goes on to say, there have been protests against the base's presence since '64. It really is a joke, a sick joke, to hear that aid and not weapons are being carried by planes out of Akrotiri, when all the evidence is to the contrary. So we organized the first demonstration outside Akrotiri in January of last year, and 2,000 demonstrators turned up. We were there, Francis and myself, with over 2,000. Now, if you think that Cyprus is something like 60 times smaller than the UK, this is equivalent to over 100,000 demonstrators. More demonstrations have been taking place there ever since, the last one being March last month. So I'll mention a few of the missions that took place from the bases. Last month, 15th of March, you may all remember, the United States launched a large-scale campaign of air and naval strikes against Houthis targets in Yemen. It was codenamed Operation Rough Rider. During the bombing campaigns, a UK KC-2 Voyager took off from RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus and flew towards the Red Sea. These planes are primarily used for area refueling. It remained in the same area for 5 hours. Again, within 24 hours, March 37, only a few weeks ago, UK deployed several RAF aircraft to aid its military operations in the Red Sea, the Black Sea, let's not forget the war in Ukraine, and Gaza. So one of the main roles is surveillance, providing intelligence to Israel. Britain has flown 47% of all flights.
Can you just hold the top of the mic? Not the bottom, but yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, 47% of the flights for intelligence over Gaza, which is more than double what Israel has done. So it's Britain that is providing the specific intelligence role. Over 600 surveillance flights have flown, mainly from Akrotiri base. In addition, Britain and the US created an air bridge made up of bases in Britain, Greece, Cyprus, Italy, and Germany. Over 6,000 military flights have flown to Israel for surveillance, refueling, and supplying of weapons. It's possible to stop this. The international working class movement has already done this when Greek dock workers went on strike to block Israeli arms shipments through Greek ports. I learned yesterday that the same thing happening with Italian dockers. So I learned by saying that these acts should inspire the working class worldwide, and we should all emulate and copy them.